Also, let's just on the record, Ify, one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in entire life, also gives the singular best hugs I have ever experienced. I mean, he's so strong.
Sorry,
Matt has a giant crush on Ify. This is so funny.
Oh my God. Hello and welcome to Can't Let It Go. It's an audio PowerPoint party. My name is Matt and I use he, him pronouns.
I'm AC. I use they, them pronouns.
I'm Jordan. I use he, him pronouns as well.
Whoa, it's our friend Jordan. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Hey, thank you, AC and Matt. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you, Jordan. If you don't know who Jordan is, I'm aware of you because of your TikToks. You can find Jordon Brown on TikTok. He's just an all-around internet person, but specifically talking about the streaming service Dropout.
Dropout.tv, Matt. Put respect on the full name of Dropout.tv.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the internet talking about Dropout. But...
Yeah, hell yeah.
Hey, Jordan, I have a really simple question for you. What's Dropout?
Sure. Dropout is a streaming service. It's very funny because I was so recently at Gen Con. I say recently, it was the beginning of August, and that's probably not recent anymore. But anyway.
It feels recent.
Yeah. Amy Vorpal was there, and she was doing a musical set, and she was trying to describe Dropout, and she was struggling through it. And I shouted out something from the crowd, and she was like, "This is why Jordan is here." I describe it as it's a home of like improvised comedy. Then there's a bunch of other parts to it. But if you just want like the one sentence, it's a home for improvised comedy on a very reasonably priced streaming service.
For just $5 a month, all of the unscripted content you could dream of.
Yes.
Yeah. And that, I mean, improvised comedy does describe even the kind of like weirder outliers there, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell you how much you both mean to me right now? The first episode of Gastronauts is sitting in my inbox, and I am doing this rather than watch that. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're here.
That's crazy. That's crazy pants. That's some self-restraint. I really appreciate your presence here even more than I already did, Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan, you can go first here since you're our guest of honor, but how did you get into Dropout, right? Like, it's this niche streaming service, right? Like, did you come to it through YouTube? Did you come to it through the socials? Like, what's your entry point?
Yeah, so my entry point is really specific, and it is from the McElroy brothers. So I had started listening to Taz, the Adventure Zone, their D&D podcast, when I first started playing D&D, because I didn't really have a lot of experience with it, and so I wanted help sort of figuring out how to play. And I caught up right at the end of Balance. So when I caught up, I was like, okay, well, I need something new. And I saw a Reddit post, and I wish I could find it. I've looked so many times, but it was one of those things where it was like a triangle, and like it was, like each corner was a different show, and then each like line connected the shows. And it was Dungeons and Daddies, The Adventure Zone, and NADPOD. And NADPOD was at the corner of Feral and Horny. And I don't remember which one went to Taz. Probably Feral. Let's be very honest on that one.
For sure.
And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll check that out. And so I started listening to NADPOD, fell immediately in love with Emily and Murph. And at that point, I remembered, I realized that they were on Dimension 20, and I had watched the first episode of Tiny Heist, the Dimension 20 season with the McElroys, but because that was the only episode that was on YouTube, I hadn't watched anymore. So then I started watching Fantasy High on YouTube. They bleep the swears on the YouTube account, and there was a moment where I was like, I would pay you any amount of money to unbleep the swears. I don't care what it is. And then I discovered it was like, at that point, I think $4. And I was like, oh, it's wildly cheap, and I get everything I want. This is great.
I actually adore this because this is so similar to how I came to Dropout. So I am a Dungeons and Dragons player, and I'm someone who's like didn't figure out how to make the jump online during the pandemic. And I also got laid off like the first week of the pandemic. And so I was like looking for Dungeons and Dragons content and was a Taz listener. So I found the Tiny Heist video on YouTube, and then Fantasy High, same deal. Like I was like, come on, it's got to be unbleeped somewhere.
Yeah.
And started watching really, really early on, and like recognized like some of the College Humor crossover that was happening, right? Some of that stuff, which I guess like if you want the juicy deets of it all, right? The College Humor of it all is that Dropout used to be part of College Humor and then became its own thing.
You want me to give you the whole thing? I'm deeply
Go for it.
on Dropout.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
that's what the show is about.
So it will be what, 20. So obviously College Humor exists for a ton of time. In 2017, they launched their streaming service Dropout. Their main shows are Game Changer and Dimension 20. And I think actually are sort of their 3 shows that they have at launch. And they're expanding out, especially in their scripted content for College Humor. And then in January 2020, IAC, who was their like venture capitalist funders, cut all of their funding. And so Sam bought the company from them. They went from, I think, like 50 or 60 full-time employees to 7, I believe. And they were like, all right, here's what we're going to do in the next 6 months. And that was, I would say like February, March-ish, 2020. Great timing to launch a huge new platform. So obviously they transitioned pretty hard into remote stuff, but they had, thankfully, for them, a giant back catalog of stuff, specifically Dimension 20 stuff that they were able to like push for like a year before they needed to start figuring out how to do remote work. But yeah, that's the story of it. It was College Humor, and now College Humor is officially rebranded as Dropout because you get it, they dropped out of college. They're Dropout. It's a good pun.
So that lines up with how I found Dropout, actually. So Jordan, this is actually, it's going to make this interview a little bit difficult because I am like actively not a tabletop RPG person.
We still love him anyway, but it's not his thing.
My wife also not a TTRPG person. She finds so little interest in the people that I interview.
I will say, like, I love nerd shit, but like TTRPGs specifically, I've said this on the show I think 3 times this season. They give me like full body cringe, like trying to participate in or watch. And in fact, the only one I've ever been able to watch and enjoy immensely has been Never Stop Blowing Up. And so I was aware of Dimension 20 and all the other things that you have said, NADPOD, Taz, all of the above, but it just like did not consume them.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's just because I have my personal hangups about it. I like all the people involved. I listened to, we talked about the McElroy brothers. I listened to their video games podcast, The Besties. I came into it because of Actually and Game Changer clips on the internet.
I think also I do have to like put in my own credit here of like, I do also think that I pestered you enough times of being like, have you watched this show? It's very funny. I think you would like it. This is like, you remember how we used to watch all that Whose Line Is It Anyway in college? If you like that, you would like this. You should watch it.
You know what's funny is I do remember you texting me that. I do know the day that I actually bought my Dropout subscription, and it's when they did that like really steep yearly discount a couple years ago.
One of my most popular TikTok videos ever was me promoting their discount.
And that feels like probably around the time that I discovered you on TikTok, because I was like, oh yeah, I already have this thing, right? I don't need the discount because I'm already a subscriber, but this is cool. Yeah, that's so funny.
Well, people in the Discord in the Worst Garbage is the network that we're part of. We're talking about it in the television channel, and somebody shared that they had a discount, and I was like, okay, I'm finally going to do this. Calm down.
That's so funny. I think it's also been really, really interesting, like from how niche Dropout felt 4 years ago in 2020 when I was watching it, like very small. I mean, even like, you know, the budget stuff, like you can tell the production value, all of that kind of stuff. But like now, how popular it is, not just like on TikTok, but like in the world, like all of the folks who are part of Dropout really seem to like also be having their own breakout moments. And a lot of it seems like maybe they're building that Dropout portfolio to make that breakout moment happen. It is always surprising to me now when I see people who I do not think of as like existing in the TTRPG space being like, oh my God, have you seen this show? Someone at my work was like, have you seen this game show, Game Changer? And I was like, yes, I've seen every episode 6 times. What are you talking about?
Oh, this is like when I see Ify pop up on Magic shows all the time on YouTube. I'm like, what's up, Ify?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so Jordon, I guess the next like question is, how did you become like the resident Dropout journalist on TikTok?
I guess when we were describing me as an internet person, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Peek behind the screen.
Ooh.
I was asked how I wanted to be introed, and I was like, "Uh-oh, I've given this no thought." So I'm actually what are we? It's 13 days from my 1-year anniversary of launching my interview series, where I interview people from. It started really exclusively at Dropout, and now has expanded to more of a like TTRPG podcast place. And I'm just going to brag on myself for a second.
Yeah, you should.
Go for it.
Hold on, I've got my numbers because I crunched them the other day. In that year, it will be 72 different interviews with 64 different people.
Hot dang.
And which means I didn't miss a week. Obviously, like I did more than one a week on average, but every Friday I was able to release one. And boy, there were some close calls in there. There was a week where I had COVID and I had just gotten back from Gen Con, and a friend of mine, like my co-host of the Dropout Drop-In, like was like, yeah, like I can find some time for you. And literally I put the video went up recently and someone commented on it, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Not a single memory from this hour. It's all gone.
Just a fugue state.
Yeah, but I have this interview series Off the Dome where I interview people sort of, like I said, at Dropout, but also now at large at the TTRPG podcast space. Part of that, it's such a weird story. So I started talking about Dropout years ago, and I started noticing traction on TikTok specifically during the A Crown of Candy minifigure auction. Because if you're unfamiliar, A Crown of Candy is their like Game of Thrones season, but it's set in a Candyland style world. So it is this like horrifically brutal, ultra dramatic, and genuinely like I wept during episodes. Heartbreaking episodes. And you're talking about someone who is literally made of pop rocks. Like it's so silly and yet somehow so emotionally impactful. It makes no sense. But so
Siobhan is crying over someone made of licorice,
yes,
you know?
And so they make minifigures on the for the show, and the auction launches, and the auction goes certainly better than anyone could have possibly imagined. The only one I can tell you off the top of my head is a piece of cake that was wearing stripy pants sold for $11,000.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I mean, it was all like no one, obviously that was the highest one. But like there were every single like minis that weren't ever seen, that were just like backup minis that they hadn't used, were selling for well over $1,000.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, this is wild. And so like I started making these videos where I was talking about like updates every day of just like, hey, here's where the giant numbers of various minis are at. And I noticed those videos really getting traction. And I was a huge Dropout fan, and I was like, well, if this is what people want, I'll just keep talking about it. Like, no problem. And so I started talking more and more about Dropout, to the point where I've been called a shill for Dropout. For a really long time, people thought I worked for them. I don't think people think that anymore. But for like a long time, people were like, they pay you. And I was like, they don't. And so like it sort of like built this following specifically about sort of Dropout content, and had gotten enough notice from people that like Carlos Luna had started following me, like some other folks in that sort of like Dimension 20 Dropout world had started following me. I had gotten Sam to follow me in like March of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds right. Wildly. So I've done an interview with Sam, and we happened to do an interview on the 1 year anniversary of when he started following me on TikTok. It was very strange, very like, in no way planned. Like it popped up on my time hop, and I was like, "How is this happening today?"
Yeah.
But so during Burrow, I'm so sorry. This story is so long.
No,
you're good.
please.
So during Burrow's End, the season that Bria Iyengar GMs and is about these talking stoats, little weasel creatures.
God.
They had the newsletter had gone out, and they're like, "Hey, gang, episode 2 is gonna be wild. You're not ready for it." And I made like a little video, and I was like, "What does this mean?" And Carlos Luna like replied in like the comments and was like, "No, for real. You're not ready." And like they were calling it next level body horror. And I was like, "Oh, what could this possibly mean?" And so
they were right. They were fucking right.
Episode 2, the miniature map for episode 2 is a bear that now, spoilers for episode 2, opens up, and they fight a combat inside the bear.
It's so insane, Matt. I can't even like the one descriptions of stoats diving into the bear via like holes in the bear. Trigger warning for gore, I guess. Yeah. If I'm gonna keep talking about this, but like it is also such a cool map overall. Like the different moving pieces, like there's really leveled up
inside of it.
It's like, crazy. It's very cool. Sorry to derail. It's it's very, very, very cool.
No, it was amazing. And I was in New York, I think, for work. And like literally sitting in a hotel room watching the episode. I paused the episode. I had several like bounces with Rick Perry, who is the lead mini maker on Dimension 20, and I DM'd him and I was like, "Hey, we got to talk about this, man." I had this idea for this interview series for a long time, and I was just kind of like waiting. I was like, well, when I get to like this level and whatever, like I was like sort of waiting till I hit a point, and I was like, nope, it's now. Let's do this. Yeah. And then I made a video where I told that story of like I DM'd Rick Perry. I'm going to interview him about this. And then a couple of days later, Abria ditches my video on TikTok where she is in a hotel in New York. She's in New York Comic-Con, and she makes a video where she's like, "Where's my video, Jordan? You promised you were going to have a reaction to this. Where's my video?" It's the first video she has made in fully like 6 months on TikTok. And so I was like, got it. I have the spotlight right now. I'm asking everybody. And so I immediately asked her, Carlos, Casey McGeorge, who's the art director. They also had been following me on TikTok. Like I immediately was just like everyone I knew that like that followed me. I was like, I'm asking all of them right now. And they all said yes. And then as you do, once you land one interview like that, you start using those interviews to be like, "Hey, Abria said yes. Would you like to say yes?" So like I got Rashawn Scott to agree to an interview. I literally got into a Twitch stream with Jasper William Cartwright and just got in his like in the chat and was like, "Hey, Abria and Rashawn have said yes to an interview. Do you want to do one?" And he was like, "Well, if they've said yes, of course I do." And so I just sort of started building from there. Eventually got put on like the official press roster, which feels very weird, but like now I have to like go through like Dropout PR. It's not just pure hustle on my part. I get to actually just send in interview requests, although I still have a lot of hustle that I have to do for people to have any idea who I am. But I really focused a lot on the crew, I should say, which because I thought was super interesting that like that the bear and everything else that they do, but also like across the board, like the Game Changer sets are amazing, and writing questions writing prompts for Make Some Noise I think is fascinating. Like all of those things I think is really interesting. And because Dropout is so good at giving credit to people, so I know, Matt, you said you don't watch Dimension 20, but there's literally in a talkback show where they will bring out a list of people and read off the list for who did what on like the set. Like routinely that happens. Yeah. And every time that happens, I'm just sitting there with like my phone and I'm like typing in all of the names. And I'm like, yep, this is, and then I just go find them if I don't already follow them. I usually do at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I was just about to compliment you on this. I actually like loved the angle of approach of like interviewing the art team, because that's something I am super interested in. My dad is like does set building and is like a stagehand and stuff like that. So I've always been interested in that stuff. And lots of times the art teams don't like they get props or people are like, amazing set, we love it. But it's like getting to hear folks, like you interview folks about like that, like really like detailed work and like how do you come up with these concepts and stuff like that. I loved. So like, thank you for thinking of that. And like, obviously being excited about it because we're nerds about the same thing, but like that is like some of my favorite content that you have made.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like the literal first interview I did was with Kelsey Hunter. And we talked about like I said, that the bear had a beating heart. And I was like, how did you make it beat? And it was like a remote control Christmas ornament that like spun. And when you like pulled it apart, it made like a if you put like this plastic casing around it, it made like a beating motion in the heart. And I was like, this is amazing, and I want to hear everything about it. Like,
that's incredible.
Are you a journalist or like?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Like in your other life, I like didn't know if that was what you did or not. So worth asking.
I work for an environmental nonprofit, cool. Which sounds really smart. I work in like the web publishing part of it, where I like write stories and edit them and put them on the internet.
Yeah, I work at it.
Like we shot a satellite into space this year to like measure methane. I don't do any of the math or anything. Right. I just write up like, this is what happened.
Yeah, I work at a civil rights nonprofit that you've probably heard of, and I work on the social media team, right? Like I'm not a lawyer. So
You've started to talk a little bit about this, but something that AC and I talk a lot about on the show is generally concepts of celebrity and micro celebrity and these kinds of things. And so I think both of us are really curious about the details of what it's like to have like a following, but still be really super niche.
Oh man, it's so weird. Because like, like obviously like Brandley Mulligan is going to get not recognized a ton, but is going to get recognized probably once a day if he's out like doing a lot of stuff, right? Obviously, if he's at a convention, he is it's like trying to walk the floor at Comic-Con when you're Superman, right? Like it's not possible for him. But for me, it's so funny because like nobody's recognizing me day-to-day life. But if I'm at, I was at PAX East, PAX West, and Gen Con this year, and at all of those shows, a bunch of people did recognize me, but not nearly everyone, right? Like, so it would be so funny because I think I don't know where I told this story, but like I was literally it was Hunter's Entertainment, was having a party at Gen Con, and I was hanging out with some folks who were way cooler than me, and like people were coming up to talk to them, and like not blowing me off by any stretch of the imagination, but we're just like, and this other guy's here. And then someone would come up to like take a picture with me or whatever, or just like thank me for like the work I do. And then all of a sudden that person who was like, then they were like, wait, I'm sorry, who are you? And I was like, yeah, I report on actual plays, the thing you make.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it's very strange. Last year, I went to the NADPOD 5-year anniversary show at, God, I wanted to say Madison Square Garden. That's not right. That's where Dimension 20 will be in January. Yeah. NADPOD was at Carnegie Hall, another obviously incredible place to play.
Yeah.
And I was able to crowdfund a black tuxedo that I wore to the event. And so like, a bunch of people recognized me. A lot of people didn't, but like it is very, very strange. I've said, like I'm very much a micro celebrity in a very niche spot. But it's delightful, right? Like, I mean, obviously incredibly flattering when someone is like, hey, I really love your work. Like, who wouldn't like that? And I will say there was a point at Gen Con, this was so wild, where I was standing in line to get into a show, and someone was like, hey, are you Jordon Brown? And I was like, yeah. And they were pulling their phone out of their pocket. And I said, oh, do you want a picture? And they said, oh, my phone just doesn't fit in my pocket very well.
No.
And they're like, but I guess a picture. And I was with some friends, and they just laid into me of like, Jordan demands his fans take pictures with him. And I was like, they were pulling their phone out. I just
yeah.
I thought it was a natural progression that was happening.
Yeah.
I'm curious, are there places that you want to take the stuff that you're doing that this has enabled for you?
Like literally places, or
sure, literally places, but like are there directions that you want to take the stuff you're making that this is enabled for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have some really huge ideas of like traveling to like I want to do like a Game Changer tour or whatever, right? Like I didn't win the golden pin, so I'm not going to get to be part of that, but like I like I would love to like go visit Dropout Studios and put together a short doc about that, or Worlds Beyond Number or something. Like it's a lot of those things. But I mean, the reason why I was at PAX East and PAX West is because I was part of the actually live shows that were there. I was the moderator at PAX East and I was the guest fact checker at PAX West. So
that's
like,
awesome.
those are the literal like I can't believe I was there like moments of that has just opened huge doors, because like you talk about like seeing Ify on Magic the Gathering shows. I played Magic with Ify at PAX West. Also, let's just like on the record, Ify, one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in entire life. Also gives the singular best hugs I have ever experienced. I mean, he's so strong.
Sorry,
Matt has a giant crush on Ify. This is so funny.
Oh my god. We talked about Never Stop Blowing Up, and I told AC that my two favorite characters on Never Stop Blowing Up were Ify's nipples.
Yeah, that's fair. Before the season started, I knew Ify was on it. And I don't know if you all were experienced part of this, but there was in the like teaser trailer where they just showed a bunch of clips of Brennan saying like hello, what are all, like that thing. Mm-hmm. One of the clips, Brennan is wearing the aviator sunglasses, and people paused the image and tried to decipher who was reflected on his glasses, and did an astonishing job of figuring it out. But someone was like, those are Ify's shoulders, and it made me laugh so hard because I knew that they were right.
No one else is that jacked.
Yeah. on Dropout. Not in the Dropout world.
Not on Dropout, yeah. That's so funny. Matt, do you have any other follow-ups about like niche stardom?
I don't.
Okay.
Not right now.
You heard it here first. I want you to get to interview everyone like in the talkback after Madison Square Garden, because I will be there and I would love to see that.
I'm doing my best. I'll be there.
Oh yeah. More generally, Jordan, like how did you get into TTRPGs? Like you said you're a Dungeons and Dragons player. Have you been playing like your whole life? Is it something new?
No, so I played once in high school. I played Magic the Gathering quite a bit in high school, and then that died off pretty quickly. And then I moved with like 10,000 Magic cards for like 7 to 10 years, and finally was just like, I'm just going to take them to the Goodwill. I'm never going to sort them and figure out what they're worth. But yeah,
you made someone's day. Yeah,
someone is very excited about a very nice card that was in a suitcase that I just kept bringing with me everywhere I moved to so many states. But yeah, I played once in high school on a debate trip, and it was fun.
My man.
Look, no one's ever been surprised that I was a policy debater.
Same. I get it.
No one's ever been surprised I was a policy debater. No one's ever been surprised I'm an only child. Those are things that do not surprise people. But yeah, I played once. It was fun, but just like didn't have a group or anything. And so in my 20s, I had started talking, to people about like, oh yeah, like if a game opens up, I would love to play. I've read comic books my entire life, and so I knew people I started making a bunch of friends from my local comic book store, and we started like doing like a brunch book club, and people were talking about like their new game that they were going to play, and so I gotten added into. There's no way I was in my 20s still. That's absolutely not true. I was fully in my mid 30s when this happened. I just want to think that I'm young, and I'm not. But I we started a Pathfinder game, and we did like a session 0. We played the first session, and then one of the people in that game gave birth to a child, and then that person and their partner moved across the country. Perfect. And that game ended because it was well before 2020, so we had not even close to figured out that. And so then I was like, okay, we got to start a new game, because I really I got the itch. I want to play. And that was actually, I started listening to Taz because we didn't have a DM, and I was convinced that like DMing was the most type A person that's ever existed. You have to have every possible like scenario like thought of and outlined, and like everything has to be ready. And then I listened to Taz and I was like, oh, it's improv. You're saying yes and to the wildest things that have ever existed, and I can do that. And so then I started DMing a campaign. We went. It was 7 years. We went 1 to 20.
Wow.
And like finished, and I'm real proud of like we ended a campaign. And then we actually started a Pathfinder 2e game in the same world somewhat recently. I don't know how many.
Hell yeah.
Who knows? Time is meaningless, but
so does that mean you're the forever DM in your group?
People had gotten the itch, and so like someone DM'd a Curse of Strahd game that I got to play in. A friend now DMs like a home world or homebrew game that I play in, although to be fair, we have played literally once this year, so it's not like an often thing.
Sure. That's Dungeons and Dragons as adults. We get it.
I've gotten to play a few times. I've gotten to play, I said, several times as a player, but I would consider myself a DM first.
Yeah.
But and then always trying to figure out like how to expand and get to play more games in the I have a 3-year-old child in the no amount of time that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so do you have like a favorite class to like watch in actual play games or like listen to in actual play games versus a favorite class to play?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a Bria Iyengar all the way down. Also,
absolutely,
this should be for people who don't know who I am. After Bria Iyengar made that video where she was like, "Where's my video?" And yelled at me. We eventually did do an interview, and she was like, "I'm here because we have a blood feud because you didn't make a good enough reaction video to the bears." And so now we have become mortal enemies.
Yeah.
So there was no point to that. I don't.
No,
there was,
it's
in my
good to
head,
know.
There was
it's
logic,
good to know.
Like this connecting. Look, I could watch a Bria Iyengar play a wizard all day, every day for the rest of my life. She was the greatest wizard ever as Laren in Calamity.
Oh my god, that was so good.
And then somehow an even better wizard as Suvi in Worlds Beyond Number, which is, I mean, certainly the best actual play podcast I've ever listened to, and I think maybe the best podcast I've ever listened to. It is unfair how good it is. And then for me playing, I am a barbarian main, which is wild.
Okay.
And it says so much about me. It's because I just want to be able to protect my friends, and barbarians can tank so much damage. But yeah, I've played a few other things in that game that I just mentioned. I'm playing an artificer, which is super fun. I've played a wizard in a game that fell apart pretty quickly, but I got to like dip my toe into playing a wizard, which is also pretty fun. But yeah, it's very strange to be like. It also, I mean, I will say, like, as someone who had DM'd so much, when a game popped up, when Curse of Strahd first popped up, I was like, ooh, barbarian, I can protect my friends, and I don't have to learn anything. It's like, my brain is full already. Like, I have so many monsters that I have to keep track of in my own game. Like, I get to play whatever I want, whenever I want.
Yes, the Travis Willingham approach. Which, Matt, Travis Willingham is a Critical Role player. Don't worry about it. A different actual play universe with a whole other subset of fandom. Sure, yeah. That's so funny. Okay, we're gonna do a surprising no one. I am a druid main. I have dabbled in like playing clerics and rangers and like other things like that, but I play in a homebrew game that is like a post-apocalyptic kind of setting using the join the party system. So I play like a ghost boy druid that I love dearly. And that home game is, in classically playing a D&D as an adult, all comes down to it's hard to schedule time with your friends. We've been on hiatus for almost a year because of scheduling. So, okay, what do you love about TTRPGs? Like, what is it that draws you in?
I mean, I just saw, it may have been in a Worlds Beyond Number talkback. I can't remember, or it may have been in an Adventuring Academy where they talked about how it's that collaborative storytelling is just so unique to it that, where it is obviously a good actual play, everyone at the table is contributing to the story. It is not, it's it's more than just like a movie that you're watching where you're enjoying, you know, a story that is given to you, or a video game that you're playing where maybe you're changing the outcome of the story, but like it's your choices that are changing it. This is literally like everyone at the table has input, and a good GM is going to make it so that like the world changes around your players. And it's just, I mean, when it works, it's magic to watch like things happen where you're like, I know it's not scripted, but how is it not scripted? Like,
the Nat 20 script, like like I always think about, like, if you've played D&D, you know how hard it is to script, like it would be to script those moments. Like there's no way to say, okay, this at this point, all of these decisions in, all of these moves in, this is what's going to happen. Like, but I do love it because sometimes it does feel like no way they just hit a nat 20. Like the dice want to tell a story. And that is something that people say that sounds like bullshit, but is so real. And that is like one of the things that I love about TTRPGs.
As this episode's TTRPG skeptic, that's too strong of a word. I actually I agree with this wholeheartedly. And because the only thing that I've watched all the way through was Never Stop Blowing Up, the stuff that kind of showed that to me was basically anytime somebody did something crazy with the adrenoxanil plutonium sulfate.
Hey, shout out to you for remembering what it is. I would have never.
I definitely Googled it while I was thinking about this memory. But like, I don't know. Spoilers for that, but there's a moment where somebody pours out something when they've very importantly gotten it back, and it completely reshapes that episode.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like so funny, like as a player, like watching actual play and being like, is that going to be the decision that the DM decides is going to come back and haunt them? Because sometimes you can clock it. You're like, oh, that was an important moment. And sometimes, like, I think of this a lot when I go back and watch Fantasy High and like think about how much Fantasy High season 1 and then in like junior year, like how many of the breadcrumbs were absolutely there. And the players were just like, I don't want to do that. I want to do this entirely other thing. Like the whole setup for what junior year became was present in the very first episodes of Fantasy High. And like, it's just so funny to like be like, oh my God, it's Ben Porter the whole time. Sorry, big spoiler, but
you should have watched already.
I watched a couple episodes. Maybe I'll get back to it someday.
That reveal was so magical, and just like, I mean, we're also like, as of recording this, I have no idea what your release schedule is, but as of recording this, we've seen the first 2 episodes of Misfits in Magic, and I won't spoil that, but like, oh my God, the end of the second episode is wild. And another one where like there are consequences for your actions. I just, it's, you have those cool moments. You saying like the Nat 20 thing made me think of, there was a point in my game where my players were fighting this like giant ancient undead red dragon, and like things were going bad, and the bard went down, and I was like, okay, what can I, like, I'm in my head scrambling, like, how do I not TPK this? And the bard death saving throw rolls a nat 20, which for Matt means you pop back up.
Got that one.
You pop back up instantly, and you get your full turn. So like, it changes everything. Like, so suddenly the bard is up, has like a full like turn to do things, and like you feel the momentum shift in the fight in that moment of just like, oh, because especially in those in fights, especially in 5e, like when one person goes down, it often is a domino effect of like, okay, well now like everyone's going down, and it is in 5e also is notoriously terrible at balancing, and especially at kind of higher levels. And so I was in my head like thinking like, I don't know how I'm gonna get them out of this, and then the dice popped in and they're like, no, they're good, they got it, and like suddenly like fully shifts.
Okay, I feel like I could talk about TTRPGs with you forever. There are lots of other properties on Dropout, however, including some of my favorite like shows that I will encourage people to watch. One of which is obviously Game Changer, big Whose Line Is It Anyway fan, Improv Kid, Theater Kid as a child, all that kind of stuff. Theater Kid as a child is really redundant of me. I got to work on that. I was a theater kid. So like, do you have a favorite like game changer episode or format? Now, it was
Ooh.
Game Changer where the game always changes, but now sometimes we get Game Samers where the game is the same.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're talking favorite format, it has to be Sam Says, because those 3 episodes have been absolutely perfect. And I will say, like, this past season, Sam Says 3 was so good that it made me go back and rewatch The Escape Room, which I had said was my favorite episode. And Escape Room is still, I think, the best episode they've ever done. But like, I did have to go back to rewatch because I was like, Sam Says 3 might be better. Like, it's so good, it might be better. And I had to go back and watch it. I was like, no, Escape Room is still like true magic. But yeah.
Sam Says 2, the Steven Soderbergh, like Lou Wilson, Steven Soderbergh joke is one of those that is just like so specifically comedy for me personally, me, and is one of my very favorite moments. But I also, when they just start breaking stuff in the escape room, they just start smashing shit. Yeah. Speaking of consequences of your actions.
I'll say I watched like maybe 5 episodes. I was just kind of watching them as I went, like from the beginning of Game Changer when I got that subscription. And then I was at a friend's house and they put on Escape Room. And so I saw Escape Room before I saw most of the rest of the show. And that was the thing that made me go and like binge the rest of Game Changer.
Yeah.
Every bit of that is so good. Like getting the 3 perfect guests for it. Every bit with Sam on the TV and then the switch, it's all so good. And yes, also shattering things in the room. Because
I mean, that episode started a months-long fan conspiracy theory that got debunked and then undebunked and then debunked and then undebunked.
I am sorry for that, by the way.
No. I don't think it was just you. I mean, you did play a deciding.
I did play a big
role.
You did play a big
role.
Yeah, I talked to Kyle Rohrbach, who's the head of series production at Dropout. He was like, I saw it from you. And I was like, okay.
We definitely talked about it in the Discord a lot. Yeah. That was a big thing for the TWG Discord community. Specifically.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have a favorite Game Changer format?
I think my favorite Game Changer episode period is Don't Cry. Just because it's like perfectly crafted for me. Like, I am always down for a good reason to cry. And that episode, it's absolutely incredible.
That's really surprising to me. I don't hear people talk about that episode a lot. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great choice. It's a fantastic episode. It is one of the episodes where I have like a 2-tiered system of like my favorite episodes, and Don't Cry is on that. And then episodes I would show people to get them to watch Game Changer, and Don't Cry is not on that.
Yeah, correct.
Now you got to have a lot of Jess Ross knowledge before you watch Don't Cry.
You got to get the buy-in.
Yeah.
You also have to be aware of what the concepts I guess for lack of a better term, like the lore of the show and like the kinds of structures a Game Changer episode can take so that it can upset those expectations and be more meaningful.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Yes or No as well, of like one of my absolute all-time favorites would never show someone it. Like, it'd be like, you got to watch at least a season of the show before you're like, oh, okay, this is just to mess with Brennan. Got it.
I wonder how many of those subscriptions have come specifically from clips of that episode. Probably a lot.
I think it's probably pretty high. It's definitely one that I see like in the sponsored posts a lot. Big old goose egg gang. Yeah, and then of course we've got Make Some Noise, our Game Changer we loved so much that they not only made it a Game Samer, but its whole own show where it's the same every show. Do we have a favorite Make Some Noise mini game?
Let me just say, like, I think starting the show in this season with a minigame is the smartest move they've maybe ever done at Dropout, period. It changed that show in such a good way of
Absolutely.
Like, we have ramped the energy up for the players immediately, of like gotten them into the mood. We've gotten the audience buy-in immediately of like, hey, you already knew what you were going to get, but you're now ready. Like, you're primed now for these prompts and silliness. So with that, I think it is, because of how good it works, for me, it's the take some direction where they Sam gives you a line of dialogue and then just keeps giving you new notes on it over and over again. I don't know if that's the best mini game, but I think it's the best mini game that starts a show, and I love the way it starts the show.
Well, and it's so like if you have done improv, if you've gone to one improv class or one improv show, right? Like you know that this is like a common warm up too, right? Like it's a warm up for the audience and a warm up for the actors. It works so well. You are 100% right.
Yeah, Make Some Noises, the show that really made Vic Michaelis stand out to me as a really incredible Dropout person.
Speaking of people and also just a pretty on.
Just a really incredible talent generally.
Yeah, Vic is truly like next level brilliant and also so exceptionally kind as well. When I first at PAX East, when I was doing the Actually panel, Christina Ariel and Vic Michaelis separately texted me wishing me good luck that day, which is so kind and thoughtful. They're wonderful. Vic is I think one of the single greatest like comedians, improv comics working, period, and deserves all of the flowers that they have gotten and deserves more, and I'm sure is going to continue to get them because I mean, look, I'm sure you've seen the lineup for VIP season 2. It's going to be a big one. Like
amazing. It's incredible. I really it's very exciting to see this like platform growing and like going in new places. And I think that like VIP was challenging for me at first. Like the format, I was like, I'm not sure that I like this. And then by the end, I was like, this is one of the greatest pieces of television I've ever watched. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, I definitely need to finish that season. It is one that I have paused just to do other things, watch other things. I've been watching every episode of Monet's show. I have heard that the Brennan episode is a triumph.
Oh my God.
Truly is. Yeah.
I actually did. I watched you and Izzy talking a little bit about it earlier today on YouTube.
That's so funny.
It's oh man. It's something, it's really special. It was there are no words for it. It's wild.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about people that are starting to use their Dropout fame to turn that into successes in other parts of their careers. Are you a video game person at all? Because I'm personally excited for Erika Ishii and Ghosts of Yote.
I am like a very light video game person. But yes, now I need to buy whatever Ghosts of Yote's the first game in the series is. I don't remember the name of it. People are like, you'll like
Tsushima.
it. Yes, thank you. And I was like, great, I need to get it then, I guess, because I want to watch Erika be an awesome samurai, a delight.
I'm just so happy for them. When I saw the trailer, I was like, that looks like Erika. And then they posted like, I'm gonna be in this video game. I was like, I was correct.
It's really fun to like going back and watching stuff and like picking up on like, since so many of these folks like in the Dropout universe have also done like voice acting credits and stuff like that. It's very fun to like go back and watch some of my favorite stuff and be like, wait, that person's voice is familiar. Oh, okay. It's someone from Dropout or someone from, the larger actual play universe,
Shout out to, I guess, Amazon. That's a weird thing to say. I love the X-ray feature though, where you pause and it's like, here's who's in the scene. I'm like, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. I just needed to know this person's name. I didn't want to have to get on IMDb and hope that the individual episode that I'm going to look up is updated, and it probably won't be.
The number of times I've accidentally done that so that I didn't annoy all of my friends by like accidentally I was like, oh, sorry, I just bumped the remote because I wanted to see, but I didn't want to have the moment where everybody is annoyed with me because I'm like, who is that? I know who that is. Can you tell me?
You said you got to be in some live actually productions. I'm curious, what Dropout show would you most want to participate in?
Yeah, this is such an interesting question because there's what I would most want to participate in and then what I would actually like be capable of participating in. Because obviously, like, look, if I get the call for Dimension 20, like I'm popping champagne and like flying to LA. But it's not going to happen. I do not have the skill set for it, like, because people have asked like what game on Game Changer do you think you'd be good at? I'm like, none of them. Like, I don't like, I would be so bad at all of them. Like, I don't think I would be good at it, but I think I could be fun at it at least. Like, I usually can get like one that I know in like every episode, more or less. And so I'm like, well, if it's just one, if I can get one, like I can still sometimes like guess around where it would be. Like I get the game.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have entertaining stories about playing Final Fantasy VII as a kid or whatever, pops up in the thing. Like, so that's the one that I feel like I could participate in without embarrassing myself to a huge degree. That I think is my answer. What about y'all? Where are you on the dream for casting?
In terms of like what I think I'm capable of doing, it's like dirty laundry. I feel like that's the level of skill that I would have to be on camera for something like that. But if I could be on anything, I you know what, actually every Sam says when they make mistakes, I'm like, I would have nailed that. Like that is the thing that I want to be on.
Mine, so one, also Matt, I think you would be really good at dirty laundry, if only because like being like a queer kid in college, like at a rural university, like we have some great like taglines for things that were super normal for us, but would very much read like, who would do that?
The Garth Brooks house.
Okay. You can't just drop the Garth Brooks house. Jordan, we went to college in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Garth Brooks went to college in Stillwater for 1 year. My apartment building was behind a house that Garth Brooks used to live in. The reason you know that Garth Brooks used to live there is because the people who own that house put like a sign on the front of it that said Garth Brooks lived here 1989 to 1990 or 1988 to 1989. So yeah, my answer is actually, I think Thousandaires is the show that I would be best at and have the most fun doing. One, because I love spoiling my friends. Two, because I have a lot of practice as someone who is an organizer, like a community organizer for many years, like figuring out exactly what I can do to maximize $1,000 for fun.
Yeah.
And so that's like my answer of like what I think I would actually be good at. I want to try my hand at actually so bad. I'm a big like I love a quiz show. I was on academic team. I like pub quiz. Like I love that shit. I watch Jeopardy every day. And I know that I could not hack it on Jeopardy. Actually feels like a safer place to go. Yeah. At least they're friendly there.
Right.
And there's nothing at stake, right? I'm not like gonna lose money or whatever.
Yeah. It's so fun. Yeah, I think Thousandaires would be super fun. I think I would be okay. I think I could pull off a Smarty Pants presentation, which I'm sure obviously you could as well. The premise of this show.
When it came out, we said they stole our thing.
Yeah, I people had asked me like, what would you do with Smarty Pants? I don't know if you have given it thought of like if you have like a presentation that you've thought, because like mine is I would want it to be on the level of absurdity that Ryan Creamer did of trying to get an honorary degree. Like I want that level of commitment to a bit, but the level of fury that Teo introduced with his charcuterie board. Horrible takes. I want somewhere in there of just like I've committed so hard to a bit, and also Anna Garcia is furious at me. Like that's what I want.
That's so funny. I did write down, Jordan, do you have a charcuterie tier ranking as one of our potential questions today? Simply because of how much outrage that moment elicited.
So good. So good.
Pickles are S tier for me, by the way. Pickles S tier. And I
don't hate it. I just like there's so many cheeses that are better than cheddar, and I love cheddar cheese.
That's true. Like, that's just objectively true.
Like I mean, it's I feel like charcuterie wise, this is maybe as basic as cheddar, but like a good aged Gouda is like the thing that I go for on our charcuterie board.
Yeah, it's a great choice. Like there are like I would rather have a truffle cheddar, and I think Teo is wrong. I am also have come out very strong that we are putting truffle in too many things.
Agreed.
It is the bacon of 2024 of like we got to slow down, gang. Truffle can't be in everything, and yet if you put truffle in thing, just like 15 years ago, whatever you were putting bacon in, I was buying because I'm a sucker for gimmick food marketing. You put truffle in something, I'm like, well, I should try it.
You gotta at least see what it's about. Yeah.
Well, it was like
it was good every time.
Every restaurant started having sweet potato fries in like 2010. And you know what? I was annoyed by it, but I sure ordered it every time.
Every time.
Yeah, I see Parmesan truffle fries on any menu, and that's coming to my table. Like, it's just...
I know Parmesan truffle fries hate to see me coming. Absolutely.
What show or season or episode on Dropout do you think is underappreciated or like needs more love?
Wait, this is such an easy one. It's Pirates of Leviathan.
Yes.
It's Dimension 20's first virtual show. That's not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you play
Zoom.
online. Yes, the first
Zoom
show.
over Zoom.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's not Zoom. They probably recorded in Riverside. I'm being stupid right now. Sorry.
It's fine.
They probably did record it in Zoom. It was early days.
That's true.
Yeah, it was their first attempt at that. It hit my screen when I was in such desperate need of like not only content but also any semblance of normalcy. And like watching them, even though they were all separated, still tell this really compelling, brilliant story. And again, I mean, Abria is in it, Christina is in it, as well as a bunch of other brilliant... I mean, I'll just list B. Dave Walters, Matt Mercer, Marisha Ray, and Carlos Luna, like brilliant people all the way down. And I think it doesn't get much love because like the audio is not great because it is their first time recording virtually. It is, people understandably don't want to go back and watch that now. But I think it is such a brilliant season, and to me is so special because I needed it when it came to like my TV.
Yeah.
I think the one for me is similar in that it's the Zoom season of Game Changer.
Yeah. It's one where I'm like, I fully agree with you, and also I'm like, I don't know if I can go back and watch it.
I definitely like tell people to watch it and then they tell me they haven't seen it or that they like skipped it or something like that. But I'm like, you don't need to watch it more than once, but you will enjoy having watched it.
Yeah. I think my answer is actually like a really early thing, which is I get technically pre-Dropout, which is Total Forgiveness. Like, I do think that Total Forgiveness is worth watching and like is the show that made me... And I'm so sorry, not that he'll ever hear this, but it is the show that finally made me not hate Grant. Because I just like am the kind of person who has like a really hard time with Grant's sense of humor. I get it. I do think that it's funny. It's just not for me. And watching Total Forgiveness, I was like, oh, okay, here's a whole person here. It's like creating like a fuller picture of this person in my mind. And I also really enjoyed like the Easter eggs of being like, oh, that's why Allie's hair was green. Yep. Like, oh, that's why this was going on. Yeah, probably that. Or honestly, Tiny Heist. I think like Tiny Heist is like was such an entry point for a lot of people who are longtime fans, but it's not one that gets a lot of love now because it is in that like silly, goofy realm. The goofiness that the McElroys bring to pretty much everything that they do is like not something everyone like that's for everyone. I don't know. I love it.
Look, Justin McElroy is such a great character creator. And now Matt, this is just for you. Justin made a character. So they're playing, the concept is they're playing all like either toys or like Lilliputian style little people and like living in walls kind of thing. And Justin is... it's a Lego man, obviously not named that. Then he will just take his head and change his entire identity. So he's like Rick Diggins, man about town, and he's in a tuxedo. Rick Diggins, space pirate or space lieutenant, and he's in his space costume. And like Rick Diggins, Rigosaurus Rex in a T-Rex costume, and it's so funny every time he does it.
It's really funny, and like it's just such a good bit. It's such a good bit. I don't even know what else to say about it. It's so funny.
I am very familiar with ridiculous McElroy Brothers bits, so I'm sure that I would love it. What is your favorite interview that you've done with the cast so far?
Okay.
Or the art team, or the production team.
Or the art team. Yeah. Anyone involved.
So this is also, it's so weird because like I mentioned, like I'm coming up on this 1-year anniversary, and so like I've been doing a lot of reflecting of like, oh, what has the last year been like of like all of these people that I've talked to, and like it feels weird because I don't want to pick one because so many of them are really meaningful to me. Like I've interviewed Vic 7 times. Like we talked. And during the VIP season, we were talking bi-weekly. We were talking after every episode, basically. And so like all of those are always really special, and because we formed a very quick and very meaningful friendship because we were spending a lot of time talking to each other. And for us especially, it was because we had severe technical problems on almost every episode, which just caused us to get the giggles, which made it even more fun, because I record on Riverside, and so it would freeze for me or Vic, but it wouldn't freeze on the recording because Riverside records locally. And so like when you're watching it, it's us talking over each other about how the other person is frozen, but they aren't frozen on the like actual interview that you're watching. And it's so funny. But I think, it's hard not to say Abria is like the best interview. It was one of those ones where when we were hitting like the hour mark, she was like, I can keep going. And like, we ended up talking for like an hour and 20 minutes. Obviously it developed this blood feud that is still going to this day. And yeah, I mean, it was super fun. And because I am such a huge fan of her work, that was another one that like led to like a really, I mean, obviously don't tell her I said this, a really beautiful friendship that we like, I think, get to experience now with one of like the most brilliant performers alive. So, I mean, it's hard not to pick Abria, but God, there are so many that are good. Like I interviewed Sam, like that was I don't know. That one's probably the best interview because like that's one where like I found out that Gastronauts was going to be a show. Like that was the first time anyone had ever said the word. He confirmed season 2 of VIP. He told me that Brennan was the finale of season 1. Like it was all these like incredible like scoops that was really great. And it was funny in that interview, he said to me, he's like, not that he was like nervous about it, but he was like, normally when I talk to people, they don't know the programming that well. So like if he had said Gastronauts to NPR, they would have just been like, okay, and kept moving. He said it to me and I was like, you've never said that word before. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, that one was obviously fun. You mentioned like getting to talk to Izzy was incredible. It's just so funny and kind. There are a handful of ones where talking to someone, it instantly feels like you're friends. It felt that way with Ify. It felt that way with Christina and Bria and Vic and Izzy and Casey McGeorge, who is one of the art directors for Dimension 20, was one of those ones where the first time we talked, I was like, I don't know if you just do this to people, but like, I think we might be friends now. Like,
that's so funny. This does remind me, because I just like had to sit in it for a moment. How long into your fandom of Dropout was it before you found out that Sam Reich is Robert Reich's son?
Oh man. So oh gosh, it wasn't super long into it. I studied politics in college, so I'm like deep in like, I worked on like the Kerry campaign in 2004. Like I've been like huge into politics, so I don't remember when I found out. But like the funny part of this is a dear friend of mine worked in the Clinton White House. And so knew Robert Reich because he was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Labor. And so like I told her, I was like, hey, this show that I love, or this like network that I love and the show that I love, like it's Robert Reich's son. And he's like so incredibly kind and he's done these wonderful things for me. And she's like, yeah, that makes sense. Because like his dad was like, when she was an assistant, and like Robert Reich remembered all the assistants' names and like talked to them like they were real people and like engaged with them. And it wasn't like a lot of other people you would expect like in like high level, like that level of like White House level politics. So I don't remember when I found out, but I think it was really early on just because of their last name. And because I started like as soon as I like someone, basically on Drop. I shouldn't say as soon as I find out someone exists on Dropout, I find them on all social media platforms. And I think had posted enough content of like, I'm with my dad and my brother and we're going on vacation. I was like, that's Robert Reich. Like that's
I feel like it was one that for me I figured out really quickly because I too like have a background of working in politics and like just it was one where I was all the time like telling people I was like, do you guys know like who Robert Reich is? Like, do you know who like, and it's just such a funny connection. And like, it's actually one of the things that like I love about Dropout is like seeing the way that like Sam brings his values, which are like clearly informed by his upbringing and like, the world that shaped him. like it brings those values into running the company. I think like it makes me feel not just like this company makes content that I love and things that I think are funny, but like they regularly are both making content like that points towards my values, like congratulations, you've unionized, right? Like, or like showing up as a company that like makes me proud to be a supporter of the work that they're doing. Like I'm proud to give my money to them, which is not usually something that I feel about a corporation.
Shout out to Amazon in the opposite regard
regard.
I love particularly on episodes when one of them has reason to like make the paycheck they're getting for the episode a joke at like the amount, but like it's funny, but it's also like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
like I appreciate knowing that you got paid reasonably for this.
Yeah. Well, and Sam is always like so assured, you get paid the day rate. You don't let them trick you. Like they are getting paid. Don't make it seem like I'm not paying you.
I will say like this was at some point I was talking to Christina Ariel about this, and she had said that Dropout and Critical Role are the only places where she's never had to ask for more money because they have just continued to increase pay at like such a reasonable level that you don't have to be like, hey, I'd like to eat, so
yeah, that's awesome.
What are you obsessed with outside of Dropout?
Outside of Dropout, nothing. No. It's God. I wish. I mean, my son, like that's such a boring answer.
For sure.
But that is who I spend most of my with my son and my wife. Like that's who I spend most of my free time with when I'm not at work or like doing Dropout stuff, which is usually after he goes to bed. But yeah, I love Marvel comics. I've been reading them since like the late 80s, early 90s. And
what are you reading right now?
But that's the thing, is I'm reading nothing right now.
Okay.
The only thing that I consistently have read is Al Ewing's The Immortal Thor in like the last year or so. Yeah. Once Jason Aaron's run on Avengers ended, I think that's where I dropped off of that.
Got it.
I'm a huge Thor fan and have been for decades. And so Al Ewing's Immortal Thor run is one of my like I really love Jason Aaron's Thor run. He did like 7 years on Thor, which was incredible. But Al Ewing's really like it's everything I want in a Thor comic. Like in the first issue, Thor shows up and someone it might be hunting a mutant. I don't know. And he just like goes and beats him up. And then like, I'm sad that they can't get up anymore because I would like to beat them up more. And then it shows him like drinking with these people afterwards, the people he had rescued or whatever. And there's this huge trans flag on the back of the like in the back wall. And I was like, that's right, Al Ewing. You make sure that everybody knows. Thor parties with the trans community. And yeah, it's just I really, really love that that comic. And then I'm really excited. I'm just going to plug Abria's stuff. She's got a comic coming out in November, The Fade. I know very little about it, and I'm so excited to buy it from my local comic book store.
Yeah. Hell yeah. We're big comics people. We're
our first
people.
episode. Our first episode was about the Krakoan era, and it was the thing that I was obsessed with.
Yeah.
Man, I love give me a map and let me like sink my teeth into it. And Jonathan Hickman does that kind of stuff better than anybody else writing comics, where he's like, hey, do you want a table? And I'm like, and like, I have to imagine 90% of comics fans are like, no. And I'm like, yes, give me the table. Like
in Hoxpox, there's a
I read it.
Just like a list of like mutant genocides.
Yeah.
And not only is it like heartbreaking, but it's informative, it's gripping, and also it's establishing canon at the same time. Yeah. It's so good.
The Moira McTaggart thing.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
How dare he be so good at writing? It's upsetting.
We're reading East of West in the Worst Garbage Comic Book Club in the Discord right now. So
madly in love with that series. Just stunning art, such a fun. Again, Jonathan Hickman, fuck up a map, give it to me all day, every day.
Absolutely.
Like the first time, like they're like, and here's the map of what the United States is. I'm like, here we go. Let's dive into this little treasure and figure out where everyone, where the weird factions have broken.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you want to ask the last question, Matt?
Let's go for it. What is the thing that you can't let go of about Dropout?
It is such a good comfort to me, and we've all hit on this at certain points, like the Pirates of Leviathan being like a return to normalcy in such an unnormal time. Don't cry, like just a beautiful like embrace of like just everything. Like it's so that episode's so good. And then make some noise of like, hey, I'm gonna sit down and I don't like it's not game changer, it's not VIP. I don't have to really like think while I'm watching it, but I am gonna laugh like as hard as I will laugh at anything all week. And just like every time, like it offers such a different every episode, every show offers such a different perspective, although usually they're very funny. But like it has that heart, it has that sense of community that like I am obviously very deep in. And yeah, it just like it's my comfort food of television.
Yeah, absolutely. We like the way that we have talked about this on this show is like these are our things that are like a safe place to land, right? Like when I am having a bad day and I'm like, I just need something that's going to make me feel better, or at least just like more even, right? Like I am putting on something from Dropout, whether it is like true comedy or it is actual play shows, right? Like it is, you are right. Like it has heart, it has soul. It is also clearly like what I was saying earlier about like a company that cares about people, but it's also like clearly people who care about each other. Like they do seem genuinely like friends and coworkers, which makes all the difference.
You don't get Thousandaires without people genuinely caring about each other. You don't get Amy Vorpal putting their favorite candies inside the piñata heads of themselves. Like it's just that's such a like all of that is such good touches all down the line. Like,
yeah. And I can't even believe that we made it this far into the episode and I haven't said anything about breaking news, one of the most incredible formats. Amy Vorpal specifically on breaking news is
Amy.
I just relate like so much clearly like with the nervous laughter is like very much my thing also. Anyway,
I got to ask Amy about the face and
I watched the clip
and she was like, look, it worked when I was doing theater and I was like, I needed to make myself not laugh about something that was funny. And she's like, but I didn't realize the difference there was I was backstage in the dark and no one was around versus like I'm on camera trying to make this face to like snap myself out of it. And I was like, yeah, it didn't work on TV. That's
Matt, is there something different that you can't let go of about Dropout?
No, but I was just gonna agree with you all in that like before this I had an hour to myself, and you know what I did? I turned on Misfits and Magic season 1 because that's the thing I'm trying to watch right now, and that was just because when I don't know what I am gonna do when I'm sitting down at the TV, I just go to Dropout and I'm like, we'll figure out something here. It's basically replaced the like Netflix scroll for me, and it like in some way was me doing that before this like a little bit of preparation, sure, but that's not why I was doing it. I was doing it because it was comfortable, and that's like it's the place I go to when I just need that level of comfort.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the show.
Yeah,
this was amazing. Thank you so much. This was such a delight.
Oh yeah, thank you. This truly like thank you for coming on this show. This was very much like I had an idea. I was like, Matt, I know that we have to do an episode about Dropout. If we're making a show about things that we're obsessed with, we have to do an episode about Dropout. And you were the first person that I thought of. So thank you so much for your willingness to be on the show.
An honor. Thank you. This couldn't have been more fun.
Yeah.
Good. What are you working on right now, or is there something that's come out recently that you think people should check out?
Oh boy. I mean, I don't know. Look, I will say, like, I'll plug the Patreon. My Patreon, the Jordon Brown, which is Jordon, is where you get. All my interviews eventually go to YouTube for 2 months. They're exclusive to my Patreon, but it's also where you find out who I'm going to be interviewing. You can suggest questions that I often do ask people, or like some variation in thereof. It's also really great for me because sometimes people are like, "Hey, did you know Jasper was about to have a kid, and that was happening during when they were filming Bros In?" And I was like, "I didn't," and now we're going to talk about it a lot. But yeah, like it's. That's sort of like the crux of where everything I do is. I co-host a show called the Dropout Drop-In with my good friend producer Liz. We talk about Dropout more or less every week. We've missed some weeks, but we're doing a big ramp up to Dimension 20 at Madison Square Garden in January, where we're just talking basically Dimension 20, Misfits and Magic, probably for the next however many weeks there are of Misfits and Magic. We just had 2, so we've got 9 more weeks. And then, I'm trying to think of like what my big interviews that are coming up. I'm going to talk to Catherine McCafferty of Pretty Gay this week. I'm really excited about that. That's sort of a very tangential Dropout property. And then I'm not going to be able to remember. It's Sandy and Melina, and I don't know their last names, but they are the people who were responsible for the animatics in Never Stop Blowing Up. Awesome. We're going to be chatting this week as well, and I'm really excited because it's such a different thing that had never happened before in Dimension 20, and to like find out sort of their process is again a thing that I love to do. I love to talk to the art department about the cool stuff that they make. And look, eventually I'm gonna I've pestered Chloe Badner a lot about talking about building game changer sets. I'll get her eventually. It'll happen. But
that set of specifically Dimension 20 and specifically Never Stop Blowing Up.
Yeah.
I will say this because it was the first one I finished and has made it really hard to go back to older seasons.
Yeah.
They're doing incredible work, to be clear. It's like the level that they were at in Never Stop Blowing Up. It was a lot of why I kept watching in the first episode, and then I just got sucked in.
Yeah. The change from Misfits and Magic Season 1 to Misfits and Magic Season 2 is so remarkable in what they can do, both in terms of like at the table and the dome, like projections and stuff it's like a whole new show. And one of the beautiful things, to plug Abria as always, is she comes in and she does things like Tabby, which or the bear, where you see Brennan's face when it happens, and Brennan's like, I can't believe this is hers and not mine. And it is. Look, arms races are almost universally bad, except for in this case where Abria and Brennan are in an arms race to do wild things on Dimension 20, and I can never get enough of it.
Absolutely.
If you're listening, go check out Jordan's stuff. And go find him on TikTok or the Patreon.
Yeah, TikTok is where I clip out things. YouTube is the whole interviews eventually. Patreon is where you can help me do this better. I don't know. I desperately need to hire people to do stuff. So please support my Patreon so that I can pay someone money. Because periodically people be like, I'll edit for free, and I'm like, I don't accept your offer. I can't afford to pay you, and I won't take advantage of your work.
Yeah. I told AC the other day I definitely need to get some help on the stuff that I do. Yeah. Hey, that's a good time to say you can find our show at can'tletitgo.gay. We're on Instagram, Threads, TikTok at can'tletitgo.gay. And if you want to support financially the work that we do here, you can go to ko-fi.com/Matt Horton. That supports this show with a goal first of paying to make the show free to AC and myself.
Yeah.
And then to support the work that I do on YouTube after that.
You know, Matt, once I told you that I was just going to do a different bit of how that's pronounced every time. So this time I'm going with, you can support us on Ko-fi.com.
Ko-fi. Perfect. I'll take it. Hey, AC, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at acfacci.com. That's acfacci.com. Great website.
Find me at matthorton.live. I just want to say this is going to be the last episode of this season. We're recording more just because of time and all that, but this is going to be the last episode of season 3, and we're going to take a good chunk of a break. So if you're hanging out in the Worst Garbage Discord, we'll be there. We might do some Can't Put It Down episodes over on the Ko-fi, but also in the meantime, I have recently sort of split the YouTube videos that I do into 2 different shows, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time making a bunch more of those. The first of those shows is called Flow State, a show that I'm saying is about the games that we get lost in. If you've seen any of my video essays before on YouTube, that's where these go. In fact, there's a playlist of all of my video essays that is now called Flow State. And then the second is called Slow News Day, which is gaming news and opinions without all the yelling. And again, if you've seen any of my newsy games or tech videos, then they're in a playlist on my YouTube called Slow News Day. All that stuff, you can find at matthorton.live. Just you have one place to go. Thanks to The Worst Garbage for having us. You can find the network at theworstgarbage.online, and we have the Can't Let It Go channel in that Discord. That link is on theworstgarbage.online and can'tletitgo.gay. And I think that is it. We will talk to all of you in 2025, and thanks again, Jordan, for being here.
Yeah. Thank you. A delight.
A delight. Bye.
TTWG, the worst garbage, online.